Hi. Yeah,
Whoa!
indie review show. Let's do it. I'm excited about the new format. So for anybody tuning in, we're changing up the format a little bit of the indie review show. We're just finding that going through the entirety of a book was just, I think, like something most people weren't personally showing a ton of interest in the audience. And then outside of that, for ourselves, I think we were just realizing we'd rather kind of shorten the review portion in general and just kind of highlight the things that we really like about the book, and just kind of hopefully sell you on it. So the objective is staying the same. It's just going to be like a much shorter review time. And then I think aside from that, we were getting a really good response from the after party. And so what we're planning on doing is just trying to kind of merge the two. So what we're going to do is start the show, just get into our review, obviously have our plug some of our stuff and all that fun stuff. And then after the review, you can stick around and kind of hang out with us while we work on our own comics and animations and other such things. So I don't know. Did I miss anything in that description, Corey?
No, I think it's good, and I think a more casual pitch, I think is like a more naturally shareable thing as well, and so in the future, if we want to carve out that 3 to 12 minute pitch, I think it would it'd be something that people could send to each other and things like that. Oh, Jim says we forgot to mention the guitar solos. So yeah, every episode, Josh will be doing a 22.5 minute guitar solo.
Yes, 100%.
As just kind of like an intermission.
Yeah, totally. Just shredding. And the worst part is I'm a rhythm guitarist, not a lead guitarist, and I'm just gonna force you to suffer through my attempts at hammer-ons.
And I will play the spoons as the drum section. So
I love it. We could cover Spoon Man. That's right. That's totally. I hope you're ready to play the rhythm with your hand, Corey.
Yeah, feel the rhythm in your bones. So so anyway, I thought I don't know. I really liked the way we were doing it, but also it didn't feel quite like us. I felt like it was like a little bit stiff.
Yeah,
and then,
agreed.
And like us and the audience were kind of waiting for us to get done with this hour-long show so that we could all hang out.
Yeah, for sure. So, and I also like the idea of this is for instance, tonight. So tonight, I'm bringing a book I'm really excited about.
Yeah.
And what's cool about it is I can just let that excitement kind of show, as opposed to having to kind of. Now you will notice some sticky notes. I did use sticky notes, but in this case, it's just because it's a pretty saucy comic. So, but anyhow, so why don't we kind of get into it and let people know where to find our stuff and all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
And then we'll hop into the review because I'm really pumped to share it. It's a friend of the show, a friend of the Artcasters. We've had him on multiple times, and an acquaintance from Portland, Oregon of mine. And it's one of the books that got me into doing autobio. So I can't wait to get into it.
Yeah. So do you want me to go first so that you
can
switch over?
That works.
Okay. So if you want to find my stuff, you can go to CoreyKerr.com. That's I'll put that up right now. So here's CoreyKerr.com right there. And you can go to CoreyKerr.com/online to see stuff, or you can click on animations. I have been posting on Instagram. I've been posting some stories of this music video, which I made massive progress on last night. And I don't think I've shared anything about what I did last night, but I will probably share some of that on the show. But so Instagram, kind of off and on Twitter, and then YouTube, and then my website. So that's where you can find me. And if you want to watch any of the animations I've done or any of that, I recently kind of realized that I've got a drawer full of stickers and posters and postcards. And I think I'm going to spend a couple weeks seeing if anybody wants to buy any of those. So
sweet. Those are really nice too. I think you guys can. I don't know did Scott ever make the video with the stickers public, or was that just like a private thing for his birthday?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know if he ever made that public or not. But yeah, they were the ones that his girlfriend used as kind of sign markers.
Yeah. So if you guys live in Arizona, you might have seen Corey's stickers all over the city.
They are marking many comic book related areas. Where can we find your stuff, Josh?
All right, so I the crazy sale is starting to reduce. So I don't know how much more. I mean, like it's starting to increase. So the last time I kind of mentioned this book, it was selling for like $2 a piece, right? And then now it's selling for about $6. So and it retails for $19.99. So I don't know how much longer that's going to be. But that's on Amazon.com. So I will tell you, if you want to take advantage of it and save some money, I would recommend you get a copy of 2 stories now. And what's cool is even though it's a reduced rate, I still get the same cut. So I'm encouraging people to gamify Amazon and take advantage of the, I think it's like a $6 price for a $20 graphic novel, which is a pretty good deal. So, and if you have Prime, it's free shipping. It's a graphic novel about faith and mental illness that I hand write, hand letter, and hand ink. And yeah, it's just it's a pretty good deal. So yeah, I'm encouraging people to take advantage of that, save some money. So yeah, and now we can get into the book. So this book is David Chelsea in Love. People are probably familiar with David Chelsea, because, well, we've had him on Artcasters multiple times. So if you guys follow our stuff, you've probably seen his work on Artcasters. He's written a bunch of very famous books on perspective and comics. That's probably what he's most known for. And he's also really well known for being like the kind of king and master of the 24-hour comic. He even has, there's a documentary that's been made about him. But before all of that, David Chelsea was primarily an illustrator living in New York, and he published this sort of seminal work, and it was like an autobio love story. And it basically documents David Chelsea's traveling from New York to Portland because he has trouble. He's a young man, like in his, like around 21 when he's writing this. And it takes place in 1980s New York, which is really fun for just some like atmosphere and ideas of like what early, like 1980s New York was like. It's a very humorous story that basically chronicles his love affair with this girl, Minnie, an actress or a pseudo actress, who's this tall, kind of gawky, neurotic girl who is like when he meets her is in like an abusive relationship. And it definitely gives you this funny kind of quirky look at the East Village art scene, and has a whole interesting cast of characters. And what I really want to highlight in this is just so dialogue I'm not going to get into too much because I just kind of want to look at pages. But I will say he is really masterful at very quick, witty, humorous dialogue. Maybe we'll highlight some of that as I go through some of the pages that really stood out to me.
And that's true of his perspective books too. Like, yeah. The thing that stuck out to me about those is like you're reading about one of the most technical and boring aspects of art, and it's funny. Like there are parts where like I actually laughed and I was like, that's pretty good perspective joke.
Oh, 100%. And there's a lot of that. There's a lot of kind of witty, artsy humor. And it also is just a really cool early autobio comic. This edition was put out by Reed Graphics, and it was published. It's copywritten from 91 to 2003. And I believe the original of this came out from Eclipse Comics as floppies in the late 1980s. And so like these were different editions that came out throughout the 80s. And they're kind of hard to get a hold of. So this is the only current version that I've found personally in print. I had to replace my old copy that I had in like the 1990s, which I think had a different cover. But anyhow, so, all right. So, yeah, so dialogue's on point. His use of perspective is really pretty incredible in this. And there's some things he does with perspective that I'll highlight. His use of ink is incredible. And then the thing I love is his transitions. And one of the things that I like that I haven't seen done in comics a lot is on this page. And it's things like, so this is a transition panel. These repeat throughout because the kind of bit and gag in this story is that he's like a young man who's relatively hormonally driven. And so he travels from New York to Portland pretty much just to get laid. And so you have these panel sequences whenever he travels from New York to Portland that sort of show his trek from Portland to New York and from New York to Portland. And they're done in these like really cool, innovative ways that usually just have a snapshot. Like, you know, here he's waving for a bus. Here he's on the bus, right? Like it usually gives a little bit of a snippet of the time period. So it's very interesting. This is like coming on the heels of the Nixon scandal. And I think like during Reagan's inauguration. And so you'll get these like interesting little one-shot perspectives, which I thought was really quite ahead of its time in its thinking. Like it's almost like he knew that this would be something people read much later. And so this would help you indicate like what time period it takes place in. But here's the thing that I think is innovative. I know it's weird, but just this shape. Like, have you seen that done in comics before?
Yeah, you mean kind of the upside down L?
Yeah, just the way he's fitting in the shape as like a puzzle piece.
Yeah.
I just thought that was really neat. Same here. Like he's just kind of, rather than fitting the panel around it, and I'm sure it's been used, but it's just something I haven't seen that I've pulled from this, you know? It's very interesting.
It looks almost more like mosaic than typical panel.
Yeah, yeah. And I just love how the panels are fitting around each other in like a mosaic tile kind of pattern. And then again, just the transition choices are really neat. As is the simplification. Like he varies from really simple to like these crazy stippled pieces, because I think at the time he was known as like a stippling artist. So anyhow, so that was cool. All right, so we have like David Chelsea. He's, you know, visiting Portland to try to meet girls. He's talking to his sisters, and he ends up meeting this girl, Minnie. And we find out very quickly that she's very neurotic. I will tell you guys, like, for anybody who's, you know, like under 18, I wouldn't recommend this book. It gets pretty sexually suggestive and very lurid. And, you know, I will say it's fairly tastefully done, but it's definitely something that, like, you know, if you're upset by like nudity or sexual you know, content, then like this may not be a book for you, but it's definitely not like porn, you know? So I think it's important to be upfront about that. So there are things, I mean, the narrative in this is great. The dialogue's very funny. Actually, I kind of wonder if I could find one of like Minnie and him when they first meet. That's some of the funnier David Chelsea dialogue. So he meets this girl Minnie at a party, and the first thing he says is, so Minnie, are you as funny as you look? And she's like, huh? And then he's like, I'm sorry, and this person's like asshole, and like it continues to just kind of get more and more awkward and kind of funny and interesting. But it's just definitely like for the dialogue in this is great, and a lot of it's like young love, early dating, a lot of dialogue that would feel very familiar if you've ever been in your 20s, and trying awkwardly to talk to women or something, or talk to men. So there's also these things that I love that Chelsea does. And like I said, I'm just going to try to kind of highlight the stuff I love. In this panel where it's, he's going to a friend's place, and there's a variety of different characters, cast of these quirky characters. But I love the way that he did this paneling, where there's a bridge that then kind of leads down here leads you to read over here, and then the bridge continues into the next panel. And he does things like this all throughout the comic, like very inventive uses of paneling. And one of the things you guys are going to notice, like of any books that I bring to this thing, is just the fact that like I love comics that do things that only comics can do. And this is definitely one of those comics, which I think is pretty amazing. I also just thought it was funny, just having met David Chelsea about 20 years after this book was done, he still dresses that way. And it's interesting that in his early 20s, he had this kind of aesthetic of like, dressing in like a suit and tie. And apparently from this comic, he also hates being called Dave. But one of the things I love too is just this variety of ink work, where he'll have like it's very clean, open style, but he'll also do these very stippled, like crazy renderings. All right, so again, it's a love story. It's basically about him, having this kind of first love scenario with this girl, Minnie. And this is when he first is like taken to her apartment. And this is where David Chelsea just starts doing really cool, very unique to David Chelsea types of things. And in this case, I have no idea what. Are you noticing flickering on the screen? It's kind of a weird thing. I guess the color.
No, it hasn't jumped out at me, no.
Well, that's good. Okay, so I love this. He walks in, right, and we have this full, almost like strange fisheye perspective shot of like of the building, to the point where it actually over here even shows you like a cutaway with the kitchen, and then the bedroom and this main room. And it's just really interesting because it has them moving throughout the panels and overlapping, and it's very easy to follow. It's basically they've met on a first date and they go in a room and mess around, thus the covered panels here. But
this is incredible.
Yeah, I'm just blown away by some of the things he was doing. And again, I just love this puzzle piece, like the mosaic way of doing paneling. And I know that may not be like the most amazing thing, but I personally think it's amazing. I also love, little details like the cat is moving throughout the scene as well.
Mm-hmm.
Just to me, that's a very like masterful, playful page. And the thing I love about this comic is it's full of a ton of moments like that. So,
yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. So, okay. Again, it gets kind of saucy. So sauciness covered. But again, I love these transition sequences. So they've had this tryst. He's going to head back to New York. And again, just these little shots of the commute. So, and here's Reagan getting sworn in. So I just think the way those transitions are done is pretty incredible. So again, like he has a friend over to visit New York, and this is him like showing his friend kind of around the area he lives in. And these are great sequences too, because a lot of them will highlight kind of the the rougher parts of New York at the time, you know, because New York at that time was a much different place. And so whenever he has friends by, it's like, you know, there's like muggers, and there's one sequence later in the comic where he has Minnie visit him in New York, and he like introduces her like he's like, these are, you know, these will be your neighbors, the Hells Angels. And they're just like, hey, how's it going? And he's like, Hells Angels, this is Minnie. Like, it's just kind of funny. But I also love this. Like, he just does this inventive thing with the panel shape, letting the borders themselves become the cutaway of the top of this apartment building.
Yeah, like an isometric view of that apartment.
It just kills me. And I think it's worth owning just to see that usage of like panel layout and stuff. It's really, and the thing I also love is it's so unique to David Chelsea. Like, it has kind of a Winsor McKay-ish vibe, the way he handles his line weights. But it's just like so unique to him, like the way that he's using multiple textures. And I also love black and white comics. I mean, just in general, that are made to be black and white. I think that's always fun to look at too. So, okay, he ends up in this crazy kind of scenario. This is him like meeting his roommate. But again, this is just, so this would be issue 2, right?
I'm just laughing because he's doing a 5-point perspective.
Yes.
Front of the building with the fire escapes. Like, it's like the most complicated thing you could do to have him, like, ring somebody's doorbell.
So this was page 1 of issue number 2 originally, right?
Yeah.
And it's just like, I love that most people would be like, okay, I gotta crunch in an establishing shot. Maybe I'll do like a bird's eye perspective and like cheat it. And instead, you're right, he just chooses the most complex thing you can do in perspective.
Because
and just to warp it. I mean,
you don't see 5. You don't see 5-point very often. That's in his second book, Advanced Perspective for Comic Book Artists.
Yeah, it's so impressive.
That's great.
And I love also, there's a lot of like great little sequences. Again, it's a good time capsule too, because you'll see on the shelves like Zot and like all these different comics that are like, I mean, first off, like it's a news rack with comics. But I mean, there's a bunch of stuff like that, like little details that are really fun as well. But yeah, just the mastery and the lack of fear of just taking on different perspective shots, you know. It's very incredible. Again, so he ends up kind of finding out that Minnie has like an abusive boyfriend. She's sort of on and off about whether she has a boyfriend or not. And then once they've kind of slept together, he finds out that she's still with this guy. And so it's like this ongoing thing, but she's sort of a mess of a character, which is apparently the inspiration for this, is like to sort of expose, like this is definitely a comic, I think, driven by a little bit of spite, and I think in the best of ways. I love early breakup comics. I might be a little partial because my first serious comic was like a breakup comic, but I also love these transitions. And this one I highlighted also because he's reading Raw, like on the train, you know, and I'm just like, on the plane. And it's like, that's pretty awesome. I wish those were still coming out, issues of Raw. But again, I just love the way he does these sequences, and I think there's something really cool about that. I'm trying to catalog that in my head to use.
Yeah.
Like I'm sure it's been used by other artists, but it's just like, for some reason, when I've read through this, I reread through it. I read this when I was like, I don't know how I came across it, but it was a comic I picked up around, like, it was a little bit after I got into like reading Dave Sim, like Cerebrus. And then I saw this on the shelf and I was like, okay, I'm going to pick this up. And then from this got me really interested in autobiographical comics because it was just so raw and honest, and black and white. And the neat thing is, But anyhow, my point is, like, after we had David Chelsea on, I was like, I need to reread this. You know, it's been like since I was younger. And rereading it, that just stood out to me like a sore thumb. Like, just doing that, I don't see enough. And I'm trying to catalog that, so I'll use it later on. Anyhow, so very cool stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Here, I just wanted to highlight some of the other stuff. Like, it's a very comical story. It's like you kind of have this young, very hormonal, early 20-something guy just being completely, you know, falling head over heels for this girl who's kind of not interested in him and is slightly a bit of a mess. And yet he kind of just writes off all of her flaws and faults because he's, you know, of course, in that like first love kind of mindset. And it's full of a lot of humor, kind of poking fun at himself from that time. But it also has some wonderful visual acting. And I just thought this was, just as like this pacing sequence was such a great like example of just acting.
Yeah.
With cartooning and fairly realistic cartooning, you know. But it's just he has some pretty incredible acting in this, which I think is great too.
That's cool.
And I was so blown away by his consistency of drawing his characters. And I remember him mentioning later on that he had made maquettes of these different figures to kind of photograph in order to use for reference. And that made me feel a little better about my skills as an artist. Until I see stuff like this. So again, he also does these really cool kind of almost montage sequences, but in such neat ways where it's like these overlapping panels, you know, that kind of flow consistently and tell a narrative of a story. And have that, again, just this perfect variety of different inks where you have, you know, like single line weights, and then you have hatching for pattern, and then you have stippling, and then you have hatching for shading. You know, it's just kind of amazing, the usage of ink in this.
Yeah.
The other thing is fearlessly just throwing in staircases
Right.
from like a bunch of different angles that are very annoying to draw. Or just including a dot pattern on the floor just to make it hard for himself. So he can't cheat the perspective.
Or the railing.
Yeah.
With like curves. I mean, you've got like spirals in diminishing perspective, and then you've got like a 1 point vanishing perspective on the wood floor.
And keep in mind, he's in his 20s as an artist when he's doing
yeah, that makes me sick. The dude, like in one of his books, like I can't remember if it's which one. I've read all of his perspective books, but in one of them he spends like 12 pages going like painstakingly step by step on how to do a spiral staircase in perfect 2 point perspective that crosses the horizon line. And then at the end of that, he's like, yeah, and now that you've done that, like nothing should scare you. Like that was the whole point of like this huge section of his book was to be like, let's do something exceptionally hard so that everything else seems really easy.
Yeah, totally, right?
So like this book is just, it feels like him. It's interesting because I've never read any of his comics. I've only read his perspective books.
Yeah, and I really recommend people check this out. I mean, I think it's one of those lost gems that I think was known for a little bit at the time, but a lot of people don't remember this book. And I don't mean that as like a diss against it. It's a brilliant book. It's just like one of those books, like this book makes me happy we have Indie Review Show, because it's like this is one of those great auto-bio comics that like kind of slipped under the curtain a little bit in the past few years. And I wish more people knew about it. Again, just to make things hard for himself, like, you know, he makes this kind of wicker pattern rug that he then shows in perspective later on.
Right.
But I love this sequence for visual acting again. And then I love this page layout. It's so complex, but again, when you're reading it, it flows very well. And this is kind of at a point much later in the story where he's gotten clearly very frustrated with Minnie, and he's started to realize that she's sort of right here. He's kind of realized that she's used him to move to New York and live in his apartment, that she's not really interested in him.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is him kind of flipping out. But for visual acting, I just love this. I don't know how clearly this is coming across, but I'll move in a little bit so you guys can see a little better. Oh, here. And focus. Okay. So I don't know if you can see this, but it's like he's gotten so frustrated that he's hopped up on like the he's kind of swinging from a street light.
Mm-hmm.
And then here he's like hanging upside down from it while he's expressing his frustration. And then here he's, just kind of like, of course. And I just think the character acting in that sequence and the humor of it is just so good. He's obviously exaggerating, but it's just,
right.
It's a really good example of like silent acting in comics, So let me try to get this set right again. There we go. Okay. So anyhow, so that's and then there's also the beautiful dream sequences and metaphorical sequences. This is where Minnie started to feel trapped by David Chelsea, and he just for fun does this sequence where he's drawing this line, and then she's drawing a line in chalk, and he's kind of trying to draw a line around her, and she's sort of preventing him with this like chalk outline. And he's feeling like she's put herself in this like cage, and then she's feeling like he's drawn this cage around her. And I love this sequence. And again, just using every technique in the book, where it's like you have cross hatching, you have stippling, you have just pure contrast with like a figure foreground flip. Then you have a mix of all, I just think it's a pretty masterful page. And it's cool. Again, you just don't really see a lot of comics like this. This is a comic approach like an illustrator, but paneled like a very smart cartoonist, This
page feels like a James Bond intro.
Yeah, it's so rad. Very Saul Bass-ish. Yeah,
you can almost see it moving.
Yeah, I love that. So, again, just like, I just absolutely love these sequences, I love how he's not afraid to do like a very low contrast picture too, where it's, it's just stippling doing most of the work.
Mm-hmm.
And again, this is that transition sequence that I love, I love those transition sequences when he's going to different locations. And this is just like a masterful page where he decides, and once again, also you can understand why he was the guy to write some of the best books on perspective ever written, because look at this. And I love that he chose a stairwell that's a Z pattern that you read in,
right?
Which I think is just pretty incredible.
That's great. Well, that's cool.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I think I'll just show a few more pages. He also gets into some crazy, and here he even uses a total shout out to Winsor McCay. That's actually a McCay face,
right?
That he's doing. But he has these dream sequences where they start warping and their heads get larger and feet get larger, and perspective starts wonking around and his head gets huge. And I think the mastery of what he's able to pull off is really cool.
That kind of reminds me of when Calvin and Hobbes starts to look like some of those more realistic illustrations as a gag.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's kind of like, he's just kind of every once in a while, he just kind of shows off like, yeah, I can do this too, like effortlessly.
So this will be my last page that I'm going to show. And then I think hopefully this has gotten you guys into the idea of this book. Again, just a cutaway shot of an apartment and him discovering something gross on the bed. But it's like, I just love the way his mind works, where it's like this sequence could easily be done just showing a panel of him,
Right.
from a normal perspective. But he's like, no, I'm going to cut off the roof. I just think that's one of the coolest things you can do in comics. So yeah, so that's David Chelsea in Love. The story's great. I know I didn't talk a ton about story. It is a very enjoyable read. It's funny. Again, it gets a little saucy, but I think in a good way. If you're into like really confessional autobio work and you're not shy about like, the fact that people in relationships sometimes sleep together, like this book is a really excellent read. I'd say for just learning paneling and kind of thinking outside the box within, like, again, he's not doing like dynamic paneling that we equate to like what we'd see with like a like an Image comic in the 90s where it's like, oh, we're going to have circular panels and all this stuff. He's doing stuff that's very conventional, but then not in the sense of like, doing things like cutaways and fitting panels together like puzzle pieces and stuff. I think there are so many things in the perspective, the inks, the transitions, and like the puzzle panel nature of this that I still, even in rereading it for this thing, was just like blown away by. So yeah, so that's David Chelsea in Love. That's one of the comics that got me into autobio, and I will say it's also refreshingly just candidly honest, and I love that too. I love authentic work that's from the heart, So yeah,
that's cool.
So there we go. So that's David Chelsea in Love. Yeah, and if you guys are interested in that book, you can get it on the link below in the show notes. And that actually, anytime you go to irisagency.com and you click the links or whatever, it's an affiliate, so it gives us a little kickback. Doesn't cost you anything extra. And also, just I highly recommend get this book. It's gone out of print with a lot of different publishers, and this version's been available for a while. And I would recommend get it while it's available. And then if it stops being available, just start bugging the publishers to put it out again, because it's really good work.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Cool.
That's great. I'm going to tease you a little bit. You were the one that reached out and said, hey, let's do a shortened version. And then you did like a 40-minute pitch.
Oh, no.
It's fine. I liked it. It was good. So, oh, did we lose you? Or you're switching cameras? All right.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just switching up.
Oh, no, that's fine. Wow.
That is funny. I didn't realize I went as long as it did.
Yeah. I was going to make a joke at the beginning, but I was like, I'll leave it. Jim says, paneling, think outside the box. I get it. I was going to make a joke at the beginning that Corey Kerr and Joshua Kemble are now going to attempt to be brief, but fail miserably at it. So, yeah. Yeah,
it's tough with that one because I really love the I love the art,
Yeah, I think I still haven't done Punk Rock Jesus yet, and I think I'm gonna have a similar challenge when I do that.
Yeah,
that book is impossible to not. It's amazing. So that'll be a difficult one to just kind of gloss over, but I'll try. I'll see.
Well, I'll be looking forward to that one.
Yeah, I don't know when I'm going to do that one, but it's coming. It's coming. Yeah. So how are we transitioning? Are we just jumping in?
Yeah, I mean, we can just kind of jump in. We could transit. I don't know. We haven't really worked that out yet. So
I know. What do you guys think in the chat? Would you guys like a little buffer between the thing? Like I could play the 2-minute countdown again, or should we just jump? I don't know.
I like the idea of a buffer. So, let's see here. Hang on a second. So we'll do a little buffer just to kind of refresh, and then we'll be doing our our after party on the same stream. So if you guys are here, stick around. We'll be back in like what? What do you think?
I can't remember how long this one is, but I have another animation.
Okay. So yeah, we'll just be back after the animation.
Okay, here we go. Apparently it's 10 seconds.
Okay, maybe that's
so that's not much of a break. Do you want to go get some water or something? I'm gonna get a drink real quick.
We're just gonna grab some water real quick. So we'll be right back. That might be just the best route. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. I'm curious what you guys think of the new format. Although I guess I went so long, it's not much of a new format.
This is a transition format. We're like slowly evolving into the new format.
I can also say, like, I personally felt more comfortable doing it, so hopefully that translates well. Because it's like I think when it's a little more off the cuff, it hopefully translates my love for that book.
The secret to the indie review show is that, and I was telling Josh this, I read the book and think of a couple things and kind of wing it, and Josh shows up with like hundreds of meticulously thought out Post-it notes with little paragraphs on each one, and I always felt a little bit bad. But I was like, so I'm glad that you come over to the dark side of just kind of like ad hoc winging it.
I am glad. Yeah. So okay, well let's take a quick water break.
Yeah, we'll be back in a minute.
All right. We're back. It's the after party. How's it going?
After the party. Good.
So for this part, for anybody tuning in, this will be where we're kind of rolling in our after party. So this is where we're going to hang out and just kind of work on stuff and catch up and see how things are going. How is your animation coming along, dude?
Good and bad. So good in that I made like huge, groundbreaking, earth-shattering progress last night. Bad in that I forgot I had a 9 a.m. meeting and I went to bed at 5:30 in the morning.
Oh no!
So I am a little tired now.
Running on steam, huh?
Yeah, but I did get quite a bit done. So I'll show you. Let me show you a little bit of it. Let me see if I can pull this up here.
Guys, this is an exclusive to the Indie Review Show. Exclusive.
Yeah. Okay, so that crashed. Cool. Send a report. Sure. Yeah, so here's like the drummer drumming as things drive by. Here's a ship flying by with some whales swimming.
Dude, very cool.
Here's this is the most complicated scene I think I've ever done.
That is crazy.
Yeah, and then here's them kind of playing as they kind of like drive by, and then various close-ups and extreme close-ups, and then other close-ups, and then more smiling, more drumming. So yeah, it anyway, it's coming together. That's not that. Anyway, I'm pretty happy with it. But it's now at the point where I'm paying the price of making everything really big, because I get to do all those close-ups without like redrawing or re-rendering anything, which
Okay.
is kind of cool. The downside to it is that I have, like, in that one scene, I've got 4 5,000 by 5,000 pixel
Ha!
comps inside of a 6,000 by 7,000 pixel comp inside of a 1920 by 1080 comp, with up to 4 or 5 like joystick rigs in each of those. And they're all flowing up into this one thing. And literally every time I go to like render it, my computer's it freezes as if it crashed. And then I just come back like 20 minutes later and it's done rendering. So like it's like so intense that my computer's like, you can choose to render something or have the monitors work, but not both.
Yeah.
You can't watch it render. That's too much to ask. So
Oh my gosh. Oh man. Yeah, with the rendering on a personal
like
computer.
This is the countdown to open the file. It's like it's got like a 30-second countdown just to open the project.
And Corey's not working on like an older computer either.
Nope, it's pretty good. it's a pretty solid computer. I mean, it's not like amazing, but I mean, it's got 32 gigs of RAM, and it's a decent processor, and so anyway.
Oh my goodness, that sounds like quite a bit of work, dude.
It's fun stuff. I had to up my cache to a 60 gigabyte scratch disk, just so that I could like preview stuff while I was working on it, because like I had a 40 gig limit on the preview, and I was hitting 40 gigs in the first 5 seconds of animation. so it's like, and an AV file maxes out at like 2 gigs is like the upper end of an AVI. And so I'm like, I have like 20 AVI files like strung together just to give me this 5 seconds of preview, and it's still like hitting the upper. Anyway, 60 gigs seems to be okay, but anyway,
Adventures in animation.
I know it. I was thinking of you last night when you started animating stuff, and then you started rendering things, and I thought, oh yeah, I remember when Josh was doing this. Like I just opened the file, and I already have 45 gigabytes on my scratch disk that I'm about to purge. So,
oh my gosh, I just can't. Yeah. I will tell you guys, like, for my brief foray in animation, and then I definitely have done some animation and stuff for my workplace too. And I will tell you, rendering is probably the worst nightmare of digital animation. Animation digitally cuts a lot of time out of the process, but that rendering time, oh my gosh.
I'm seriously considering at this point getting a getting like an account with Amazon Web Services to
Yeah,
like
you mentioned that, right?
yeah, you can rent out their render farms, and it might be worth it. Like, because like one of the reasons why I was up till 5:30 in the morning is I rendered 2 or 3 times, and like I'm like, well, I'm gonna render this and see how it looks, at like full resolution. And so I'd render it, and then I'd like go, kind of wander around the house, take a walk around the neighborhood, make myself a little 2 a.m. snack, come back, and it's almost done rendering.
You know what's funny is like for health, 2 a.m. snacks do not tend to be too good.
That's true.
Because I'm like, anything I want to eat at like 2 a.m. is usually not great stuff. It's usually like the worst of stuff. Like I'm like, okay, there's potato chips. Those look delicious.
Right.
I'm gonna do those potato chips right now. Rock those chips. Yeah.
Yeah. It's fun stuff.
Well, dude, I'm excited though. I think it'll be cool.
Yeah. So the problem now is I can't have After Effects and Premiere open at the same time, and I have to purge my cache each time I switch programs, because they both can't. They're just whatever. Like they freeze up if I do it. So let's see if I can open this up and show you a preview. Okay, here we go. So let me move this. Yeah. Okay. So let me see if this will do it. I'll go full screen here. Here's. I think this is the first time I've probably done the whole preview. You guys can't hear the music, but I'll play the thing for you. So there's the little bell in the sky and my whale. That's kind of janky, but turned out okay. I'm still gonna have a hand push that button. And then here's a little drive-by. We gotta fix his face. James Clark illustrated some of these animals for me. That was cool. There's my airship opening up. This looks so much better when you're listening to the music like I am, but I don't think you guys can hear it.
No,
there's a little spot here where you can. There's a fox, a pirate fox, dressed up like Napoleon, who's piloting this airship. So then that drops. We're trying to show how hot the desert is right now. This leaf falls and lights on fire. And then we get some close-ups of the band. And then we get some other close-ups of the band, which I haven't done yet, but there'll be some. The reason that we're not seeing anything right there is because the bass guitarist actually has a signature bass, and I did a generic headstock, and so I've got to go re-illustrate his headstock before I render his stuff out. And then there'll be a big gap here. Then we go into her mouth, into this scene.
This is one of my favorite scenes.
This was illustrated and animated by, except for the caterpillar, I animated that, by Emily Gumminelli, who's still doing a 48-hour art check with Kayla Dugood. And she did a great job.
Yeah, I wish the whole video looked like. No, I'm just kidding.
No, I don't blame you. I agree.
It is really cool though, and I actually like how it transitions, because I think it actually merges really well, the two styles.
Yeah, and I don't know if anybody can tell, but she's the one that did all of the background elements. And so as you're seeing different things, you'll see her illustrations are all of the backgrounds and all of the non-anthropomorphic animals. So anyway, yeah, she did great. So her and James Clark were the ones that I hired to help me out with this, and well worth the money. They were awesome.
That's looking really cool, dude.
So anyway, the rest of this is animatic, but that's where I've got so far. So I've roughly got about 3 of the 4 minutes finished, but the rest of the stuff I've got assets rigged and everything. The only thing I don't have is this Fox character. So there's this guy right here, the like kind of Napoleon Fox. So I've got to draw him and then draw the bombs and then draw the interior of the ship. And those are the last assets I've got to draw. So I'm hoping to wrap this week.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that should be fun.
That'll be a bit of a relief too to have that off your plate, you know.
I have been going to bed at 3 or 4 in the morning every night for about 3 months, and I am feeling it. And every one of my 41 years is telling me that this is a bad idea every time I wake up and go to work. So, man. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. Watching that, I'm like, I'm glad I charged what I did, but I think I could have multiplied it by 3 and I'd still feel pretty comfortable at that price.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, now I'm going to look at what I need to do here. So that's going to be drum solos. That's okay. Let's see. Sorry, this is my mumbling part.
No worries, man. I am working on just getting panel borders and type laid out. It's part of my process. It's probably part 2. So I'm probably about a third of the way through working on my graphic novel.
Yeah.
And then, right now I'm on page 54 of like 140-ish. So that's not too bad.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited. And then, we finished our. I'm in a band that. Yeah, so I'm pretty excited about we kind of finished the master for a pretty rad EP. So I look forward to hopefully being able to share that soon.
Yeah, I previewed a few of those songs the other day, and it sounds so good.
Yeah, I was pretty happy with it, man.
Yeah, it's real. I'm excited for that to hit. I listened to it and I was like, I mean, mastering is I don't know anything about music, but mastering is just one of those things where it's like, man, that could, that really just makes it sound like really professional. It sounds so good.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Like we spent a while, getting the mix right and stuff like that, but it's and then the master just it sounds really good. So I'm very excited about that and kind of trying to just sort of keep being productive. But it is interesting. It like the thing I love about creativity is like I think guys like you and I like it or not, we're gonna be kind of Figgy and the Nooges.
Is that an inside joke I don't get?
Yeah, so Jim was talking about a kind of fake venue that's going to be in in Pleasure Beast.
Oh, he just posted something on Instagram.
Yeah.
And it was a paragraph of the funniest names I had ever heard for bands.
Yeah.
And he was talking one after the other. They were hilarious.
Yeah. So he was riffing on band names, and he was like, "Did anybody else know other bands that played at this venue?" And I was like, "I mentioned Figgy and the Nooges," because I was thinking it would be funny if there was like a band like Iggy and the Stooges, but they had Ted Nugent in them, and they're the Nooges.
Yeah,
it would be horrible, wonderfully horrible. Anyhow,
this is gonna. I don't know if I can stream while I'm working on this because my computer's dying. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, and I'm pretty stoked. I'm going to be on Ronnie's show in like a week or 2, I think.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and I'm pretty excited about that too. Although I have no idea what our topic will be. I know it will be horror related, so that should be pretty cool. So if you guys aren't subscribed to Crimson Owl Comics, make sure you subscribe because they have a good thing going. But it was funny because I was put on notice on their show. It's funny.
That's funny.
Yeah, I partially feel like it was yeah, it was mostly because I think Jason just read Quarterly or Two Stories and was impressed with it.
Oh, good.
So it was a fun thing to hear, and it definitely made my day. It's always fun to like. It's neat to hear when somebody actually enjoys your book,
right?
For real, you know. So
yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. All right, so let's see here. What we got.
So what's going on outside of comics and whatnot?
Well, let me see. I mean, basically, yeah, there's just a lot of plates in the air, and they're all comic related. So
I just yeah, I'm looking forward to. Oh, I came across this thing. This is a weird deep dive that I'm excited to get into. It's the first time in a few months where I'm like, I am excited to just not produce anything and just deep dive into this. I came across this guy's live stream. Sorry, I totally cut you off. I asked you a question and then I totally cut you off.
No, I want to hear it.
I came across this guy's live stream and he was talking about creature design and how there's 5 mythological animals and 5 contemporary animals, and those 10 animals make up every major like creature design that's ever been designed. And then he recommended a book to me, which I bought, and the book is like, it's like one of those things where it's like so obvious that I think I might have known it before, but it's never like surfaced consciously. Where like every vertebrate on Earth is built on the same structure, like the same bilateral structure. Like every vertebrate has like a spine and skull and 4 limbs and you know, like shoulder blades and the same number of articulating joints. And the only difference is like the length of the portions. And that's what makes up the different animals, is like how long or how much volume certain areas take up, but they're all the same. And like, I kind of knew that because like I'd seen like, you know, the horse, and like you think that it's got like an extra knee, but it's really like a wrist. And then the you know, the hoof is like just a really long section of like what we would consider fingers or whatever. Anyway, it's like point by point, but anyway, fascinating stuff. And I'm toying with the idea because I'm so sick of client work that once I knock this out, and then the 10 t-shirts I'm doing and the other 2 animations, like once I get those done, I think I might just like spend like a week on each one of these animals and just like dig into it, really understand it, study it, and maybe even do like an articulated, like animated skeleton of like each one and see if I can build it off of the same structure and just lengthen different parts. I think that would be kind of interesting.
I like that. That's a cool idea. I remember long ago, I was at the this is somewhat related.
Galaxy far, far away.
Yeah, I was on a galaxy far, far away, and I was handed a hologram of Princess Leia. No, so I was at like, I think it was the La Brea Tar Pits, and as a kid, I think, and I was just so amazed by the fact that the giant tree sloth looks like the most horrific monster in the universe, but it's like one of the most passive animals in the world. But it's just the skeleton of, like, if you guys ever are bored and you want like to see something that could be like the base of just like a complete horror creature.
Right.
Just look up what a giant tree sloth looks like, just the skeleton of it.
Well,
it's like the creepiest looking thing in the world. It's
skeletons
amazing.
of a lot of things are like, holy crap, that is weird looking. Like you look at like a little cute animal, like furry woodland creatures, and then you look at their skulls and you're like, that is creepy.
And then what's funny is if you look at like pug skulls, they just look really funny and crazy, just like pugs do in real life. Like they
That's funny.
Yeah, it is. I think it's kind of innate to like people who are building art or making art, where it's like there's inevitably like an interest in anatomy and like different bone structures and stuff like that. It's like I don't know. It's just fascinating to see how things are built and like what's underneath things and like what causes like different shadows to form or tensions to happen. Like it's a really cool thing. But you're right. Like there's a lot of consistency to it, to different animals. I have a question about your little rabbit hole there.
Yeah.
Oh, before I go on to that though, I want to mention the thing that I was talking about on Crimson Owl Comics channel that I was going to recommend is actually check out the interview. They just had Gary Hodges on, and that's the one where they kind of called me out. But it's also really interesting and fascinating, and they talk about like a lot of great classic horror flicks, and so I recommend it. But anyhow,
I'm not that into horror, but I've caught their show a few times. It's really good. It's so fun.
So it's funny because I'm not like a huge horror fan, but when I was at my signing recently, I did like a signing at Pulp Fiction in Long Beach, and I took a peek at Red Room, which is extremely graphically violent, and I wouldn't recommend it for like most people unless you're a junior high kid.
Okay.
If you're a boy in junior high, the violence might just be at that perfect level.
Right.
But it's definitely like not going to be marketed to junior high kids, but it's the kind of thing I would have been all about when I was in junior high. It's pretty amazing. And I know it's weird, but I was like happy it was out there, even though it's completely too violent for my tastes. I was like, I'm glad there's still stuff like EC horror out there.
Yeah.
And it's like definitely in that realm. But yeah, I don't know. I like I think some horror I really dig, but I tend to like the stuff that's more subtle and like more of like suspense, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I like one of the reasons I like Alien is that you don't really see the aliens for like most of the movie.
I've got one of these days I've got to watch that movie.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty expertly done, like the first one.
I mean, I've read a ton of books on storycraft.
Yeah,
and they all talk about it. You know,
yeah,
like everybody references it, so it's like I feel like I'm missing out.
Well, you know, maybe not. But yeah, I don't know. Like I do think horror is a fun and interesting genre. If done right, it can be really cool. But I think there's different people like different things, you know. For me, if it's like too real, I don't tend to like it. And like I will tell you, Red Room was like horrific enough to where I was like, yeah, this doesn't make me feel good. Like it doesn't even have much of a plot. It's just like utter just slaughter.
Yeah.
But you know, it's like I know it's weird to say, but I feel like there is an age for that. Like,
yeah,
I don't know. It's like this. Maybe I was just a weird kid, but like most guys I know, like they hit this age where it's like, it's just for some reason like really graphic violence.
I'm gonna say one of the weirdest sentences I've ever said. I got my wife a robot vacuum for her birthday, and I have to go check on it because I think it's destroying something just from the sounds it's making. So I will be back in a couple minutes.
So you guys like stay tuned to see if Corey returns or if the robot vacuum wins. That would be really funny, considering our conversation was just about horror. If suddenly Corey is accosted by a robot vacuum. Just saying, you guys. If someone wants to do a comic of that, I'm all for it. So how's everybody in the chat doing, by the way? Just kind of curious. And Jim, how's Pleasure Beast coming along? But yeah, it's been interesting too, because like Robot Vacuum is a great band name. What's the name of the venue, Jim, in your post? I don't have it on hand, and I loved the name of it. It kind of looked like a version of like the Troubadour or something. I don't know if it was supposed I don't know if that was supposed to look like the Troubadour, but it definitely looked a bit like the Troubadour. But anyhow, so speaking of like horror that appeals to you when you're younger, I've been like listening to this really excellent podcast that kind of gets into the history of some of the early history of punk rock, and it's called No Dogs in Space, and it's so good. It's so excellent. It does like a deep dive. It starts with like the Stooges and then goes into the Damned, and then gets into like the Ramones, and that's I think where I'm at right now on it, is like kind of listening to it talk about the Ramones and stuff. But it also so it has episodes that get into like the Misfits, Fuzaris. That's so great. Okay, so I feel like Fuzaris should have a band called Robot Vacuum for sure, is all I'm saying. Based on Gazaris. Okay. I don't know anything about Gazaris because I'm not as cool and hip to LA as you, Jim. But anyhow, I feel like the Misfits are a good example of that. Like I still kind of enjoy some Misfits songs, but like I've reached a certain age where like there's stuff that like they say in their songs where I'm just like, that's a little offensive and weird. Like, and whereas like when I was younger, when I was like in junior high, I was like, this is awesome. They're saying stuff that's like crazy and awesome. And now it's like there's some lyrics where I'm like, wow, I wouldn't want that around my daughter or son or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, it's an interesting thing, but it's like I feel like that had an overlap with the whole horror conversation too. Because I still, like, to this day, love like a lot of those early Misfits albums. But like I said, I wonder how much of that love is just because like I got into them when I was like in junior high, and like just had that mind for like, I don't know if that makes sense, but anyhow, that was
Josh. I've got to bow out for a bit. If you're still on later, I'll pop back on. But our refrigerator is at 50 degrees right now.
Oh my goodness!
I don't know what's going on with it, and so that was my wife vacuuming the condenser coils to try to get something.
Yeah, go take care of your refrigerator, man.
I'm gonna go do that. It was nice to hang out with everybody. I may see you later, depending on how long it takes to save all the food in our house.
Save the food. Go, Corey. So you see, it was the attack of the vacuum cleaner, but instead of the vacuum cleaner, It's the killer fridge.
Yeah, the fridge. Our fridge is not doing great. So
good luck, man. That's a bummer to hear, but go rescue the food.
Okay, we'll see you guys later.
All right. So you guys, Corey's food has been attacked, and then we've got oh my goodness, we've got Frank. Hang in. Just turn off this. Oh, wrong one. Trying to get this turned off. And I will probably be hanging for a little bit and getting more of these kind of rough pages going. Because I got 2 more to go before I can call it a night. Although I think at like maybe 1:30, we might kind of call it. So yeah, I don't know. I find that really interesting. I don't know if you guys ever had that with like horror stuff where it's like there's like this peak age to get into horror. Oh, and then Frank was saying they had Paul Pate on on Frank's channel, and Paul Pate, very excellent animator as well, and cartoonist extraordinaire. All right, so I'm gonna make a copy of this. These are always fun to do. I have this whole weird system with these pages. Where I'll kind of make like a copy of the previous one. Then retitle it so I don't have to kind of reinvent the wheel. I love it. Okay. And pull it open and then just kind of change the different thing. Squatch has joined us. How's it going, buddy? And then yeah, we got like a nice full chat. What are you guys all working on out there in the chats? I'm kind of curious. Sounds like Jim is getting close to finishing. Don't hesitate, vote Pate. Is that a competitor? I thought I was running for president, Frank. Are you? Wasn't there a bit? I feel like we had a bit a while ago where like we were gonna pretend we were like running for politics or something. But I do like the don't hesitate, vote Pate. Frank, was that tonight? Like when was he on? Let us know in the chats so we can all check that out as well. All right, so this is going to be relinking to the next page. These are not incredibly fun pages to look at because it's harsh territory. Squatchy said, sketching cover ideas for the comic. I love it. And then he was saying episode 3. Ronnie was saying. It's good. That's right. We were going to do Kemble 2020. I think I should still run into 2020. Paul can run for 2021. I'm going to just continually run for a past office. I like that idea. Can be like a time travel candidacy. All right, so we're just going to get rid of these. And then here we go. We got like our layout with a bunch of type that I got to type. Okay, Frank said Paul was on tonight. Okay, cool. I'm gonna have to check that out, Frank. Like once I'm done with the stream tonight, I will go check that out because Paul's a good dude. All right, let's see here. I do feel like we should start some kind of wrestling feud on the interwebs. I'm not sure how we'd go about doing it, but I feel like there needs to be a wrestling feud. I don't know. Jim, would you be down to start some kind of wrestling feud? Okay, let's see here. Friends and family. It's tough when it's tough to do the chatting whilst typing. It's an interesting thing. Okay, so let's see here. Starting So it should be on Friends. There it is. Okay. Annoyance at how badly okay. I try to kind of bold certain letters too, like when I'm doing this, because I feel like it, a good comic's gonna take advantage of bolding certain words. There we go. Bold. Jim was saying he's down for the wrestling match if he gets to be the Bella twins. I love it. And then Frank was saying we can call on each other's shows. IRS is going down. Oh boy, that's some heavy talk, Frank. I got to work on my wrestling voice though. I don't have the best like wrestler voice. But I do like the idea of some kind of, all right, we'll work on that, Frank. Shouldn't be showing people behind the curtain on that. Okay, so let's see here. Okay. So I do think once we kind of hit the hour and a half mark, we might kind of call it. Let's see here. I am really excited about the EP though that we finally mixed, and I can't wait to share it with you guys. It's pretty cool. I feel like it's like the best thing I've recorded with anyone, and it's pretty neat, like pretty exciting. One of the fun things about collaborative projects like the band is like the fact that there is a real joy and like kind of and just kind of like what happens when like multiple people kind of contribute, like where you end up like kind of coming up with ideas and audible sounds that like you wouldn't think of on your own. And I just think that's really cool, Can you smell what the Josh is cooking for you, Frank? That's my try for now. It's gonna happen. I'll work on it though. I'm gonna practice. Gotta get that kayfabe wrestling going. I feel like it's gonna be hard for people to buy into the kayfabe though, because like Frank is. I mean, I think if anyone with half a mind looked at like me and Frank, they'd be like, "Yeah, Frank's winning this one." Like, you know what I mean? I'd have to. I don't know. But then again, I mean, Andy Kaufman was able to sell people on him being a wrestler. So who knows, man? Let's see here. I do like the idea of it though, because I feel like Captain Courage is a really great like character to call out in like a wrestling match kind of fashion, where you could be like, "Oh yeah, Captain Courage." You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I'd have to think of like some pun or something about how like after I'm done, y'all won't be so courageous or something. But now, see, that's my problem. That's why I have to work on my wrestling voice, because that sounds like I instead of sounding like a wrestler for a second, I just started sounding kind of Canadian. And I don't think Canadians are very intimidating. Okay. Let's see here. Oh yeah, that's what it's all about. See, again, just the Canadian thing. It just comes out. So gonna have to work on it. Corey Kerr's gonna feel the burn of the cold refrigerator. I hope his fridge is okay. That's a beast of a thing to deal with. We've had our power go out before and like had to kind of retain all our food from a fridge, and that's a beast of a thing to have to do. Yeah. All right, here we go. I am really so like the nice thing about this is once this section's done, I'm a little bit closer. And these things are kind of beasts to do. So this is the first time I've tried on my own project to do like bulk all of it. Prior to this, it's like I used to do, like I would do something like the page I'm doing now. And I would go from, like script page to like this. I'd rough out like one page, and then I'd do this whole type thing that I'm doing now. Then take photo reference for the page, and then pencil the page, and then ink it, and do that page by page from like a bigger script. This is the first time where I've scripted the entire story, roughed and pencil, like done rough pencils and thumbnails for the entire story. And now I'm trying to do this whole thing for like one whole story. And I think it's actually a pretty cool method, but the downside is like, you definitely have to like kind of try to fight to kind of keep your focus, because you repeat the same thing a bunch of times and it can kind of get a little tedious. Because it's like there is definitely a part of me that's like, I just want to get into pages, So it's a bit of a practice of patience. And also, I totally made these too big. So I'm going to have to adjust that to work. But yeah, so like that's one of the things that I think is pretty exciting about kind of trying to just batch all of these. And then Ronnie, we'll see you next time, man. Thanks for stopping by. Good luck in your dental appointment. It can be a fun or terrifying experience. Let's see here. And definitely, if you guys can, you got to check out the second installment of his story too, which I'll have to link to like on another stream when I'm able to kind of pull it up. But it's pretty cool on Tapas. See if I can find it real quick. So yeah, if you guys are bored and you want to check out some really awesome horror stuff for free, go to tapas.io and look up A Vengeful Heart. There's like 2 stories up so far that Ronnie's working on. It's pretty cool. Definitely horror though, so just be aware. It's going to be a bit horrific, but I definitely think worth the read. And I'm pretty excited because I think it's gonna, it's starting to get very, very interesting. Okay. I don't want to say too much, mainly because I still need to finish the second installment too. I've read like 2 pages of it so far, but it's really cool. Save money. Okay. All right, you guys, we've gotten to 1:30. And so I hope you guys like the new format. I guess you can let me know in the chats or after the fact, like if you're watching this after the fact, let us know your thoughts, whether you enjoyed the new format of the Indie Review Show. In general, it's just going to be a little bit more casual and sort of roll the after show and the main show into one. Yeah, I guess like Corey's probably still in the refrigerator scenario, so I'll just let you guys know where to find him. Make sure you're following Corey Kerr on Instagram for sure, because he posts really cool process stuff, like some of the stuff he showed tonight, where we saw little snippets of his music video and stuff. So make sure you guys are following Corey Kerr. And if you guys haven't yet, make sure you pick up a copy of 2 Stories, book 1, 2 Stories by Joshua Kemble, Kemble. You can get it right now for about $6.50-ish on Amazon, and that's up from like when it was really, it was like ridiculously like cheap. I think they were selling it for like $2 or something on Amazon. And that was unusually crazily low for a book that retails at $19.99. So anyhow, point being, I don't know when it'll go up from $6.50 or whatever it's at right now. And that's a really good price. So if you have Amazon Prime, I really encourage people pick up a copy while they're still, at that rate. Maybe get one for a friend or something as a gift, because it's a pretty good deal. And if you have Prime, you get free shipping, so you're out like $6 for a full graphic novel, which is pretty rad. And I personally think it's a pretty good graphic novel about faith and mental illness. It's a very heavy story. It's definitely not all ages, so I wouldn't get it for like, a 5-year-old or anything like that. But definitely, I think most of you guys, if you like the stuff we review on the Indie Review Show, would like it. And to those of you who have picked it up and stuff, thank you. And thanks to everybody who showed up in the chats and checked out the Indie Review Show. And I really do want to say, make sure you guys pick up that book, David Chelsea in Love by David Chelsea, that we reviewed at the top. It's a really good book, worth owning, and get it before it goes out of print. So, all right. Anyhow, with that being said, that'll do it for the Indie Review Show. If you want to watch past episodes, they're all up on irsagency.com. And other than that, we'll see you guys on next Monday. So have a good night, you guys. Bye. And there will be like an eternal lag here. All right. Bye, guys.